Welcome back to Man vs. Meeple, the show where we talk about all things board game related. We have today another Kickstarter preview. This one has been on Kickstarter for a little while. It's called Sine Tempore, and it's one that we saw ourselves on Kickstarter, and we decided, you know what, let's see if we can get a hold of that and get it to the table.
Yeah, so let's be honest. The miniatures drew me in. The miniatures look awesome in this game. Like, really, really high detailed stuff here.
And unique, too. They're not like the same old, same old.
Yeah, so it is fantasy sci-fi based, too.
Yeah.
Which you don't see a lot of. It is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game. Each player at the table is going to be working together in order to complete missions or tasks. You can play it either in a scenario or in a campaign. What we got to play and sample was just one particular mission. However, the game will be campaign-based, and there's a spider chart that you can see down there. You'll land into a base camp. You'll be able to spread out however you so wish, gathering resources as you go, upgrading your equipment, and fighting different bosses along the way. Each player, there's 4 unique players in the base game that we have. We have like a medic, a security officer, a captain, and then a psionic. The psionic being really unique because they have to manage Oblivion, which can hurt them through the course of the game. However, it's got a really neat Diablo-style progression system within the game that are called skills.
Yeah, at the beginning of the game, I think everyone has one of these player aids that's specific to their character, and there are 6 different possible base skills you can choose from, but you choose only 5 of those to add to your character. Those are going to be skills, too, that can evolve over time as you play the game, play through the campaign.
Yeah, so you'll be evolving these skills and then looking to the other side to see what those skills allow you to do. These skills will either be like one-time effects, once per activation, ongoing effects, or they'll even use up your action points in order to use them.
Yeah, and they're tough choices right from the beginning, too. When you choose that one that you're not going to use, you really have to weigh your options and how you're going to play the character, just like it would be in a lot of role-playing games. Especially, it brought back video game, not just Diablo for me, but it brought back a very Mass Effect vibe to me, probably because of the sci-fi setting.
Yeah.
But even the way it plays, too, which we'll get to a second, takes into account sort of the timing of how you're doing things and how you're spending action points.
So when you slot these skills into your player board, they actually go into recessed holes in there, and they'll tell you what player skills that you have for that particular mission. And of course, once you've upgraded these through the campaign, you can switch these out as you so wish prior to the mission beginning. Each player will also start with a set number of equipment. It depends on the player. These equipments will allow you to either have a better defense through armor, use weapons in order to modify the number of dice or the hit points that you have with those dice, or to do other special effects over the course of the game. These equipment can also be upgraded throughout the campaign. You all start with level 1 pieces of equipment. They're denoted in the bottom right-hand corner. But as you gather resources, kill enemies, grab loot, you can look on the backs of these equipment, and they have signs or energy cells that you can use to upgrade them.
Yeah, it's cool. The way the equipment interacts with the player characters, they all have their base stats, and the equipments really serve as enhancements to those stats. So if you're going to roll 3 to attack from range, this gun might add 1 die. Another gun might add 2 die, something like that.
Each of the characters has 5 stats. You have your rapidity. That's how quick you can move within the course of a phase. It also acts as how many action points you get to use. The higher rapidity, the more actions you get to use. You have your marksmanship, your physical damage. You have your mind damage for things that are psionic. It also acts as your defense. And then you have a number of hit points. When you are knocked out in this game, you're going to be gathering wounds. Those wounds will affect you through the course of that particular mission. They may create like a severed artery in your leg or a broken arm, or so you can't use your stats in a particular way.
It's nice because it's not player elimination. You're not out sitting there watching the rest of the group play for the rest of the evening.
Right. You're going to be seeding the board according to a mission chart. That mission chart will tell you how many rounds you have to complete your mission, what your mission is, where to seed the scenery within the game, where to put the enemies, and where you're going to start. In this particular mission that we got to play, we all started in the northern board. We had to come down, open up a computer system, which allowed us to access the bridge and then find a relic.
Yeah, and plus the enemies on the board and in each scenario, from what we understand, are going to behave differently too. In some scenarios, they're going to have objectives that they're going after. For lack of an objective, you are the objective. So they will just kind of slowly come towards you to try to knock you out, which is the scenario we played is built that way to give you kind of an entry-level taste to how the game plays.
And who they attack is pretty cool as well. You will have a peril dial. It's called the Perillium. Anytime that you wound an enemy character, anytime you kill an enemy character, anytime you heal yourself or a friend, you're going to be dialing that up, which means that you're going to be the target for those enemies when they get to
exactly. It's almost like a threat level, if you will.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. At the start, each player is going to see their board with skills. You're going to draw one event card. That event card will have a global effect for the entire mission. And then, like we said, we're going to put the enemies out on the board. Now, the whole game is driven by this momentum track.
Yeah, this is the big differentiator. I mean, for the most part, this game is very similar in the vein of a Descent, like we've said.
Yeah.
But this momentum track is really what sets it apart.
There's a couple things to note about the momentum track. You have a number of phases. Those are the turns within it. There's 12 turns within a particular round. You have a dial that will point to whatever phase it is in that turn. There's also glyphs. These glyphs will enact when that dial is pointing to that area. Those can enact your special abilities. They can enact enemy special abilities or terrain abilities or whatever happens with that particular glyph. In the center, you have basically a round dial. Each time it goes around the board, you're going to turn this one tick in that direction. Now, it totally depends on the mission that you're playing. Some missions could be 3 rounds long, some could be 5 rounds long, and it's all dictated by the phase and the number on the
and the
dial.
Players have some control over that. To some degree, the way you spend your action points, the way you interact or don't interact with the enemy characters that are on the board is going to move that initial dial certain number of spaces or not.
Yeah. So to start the game, again, depending upon the mission that you're playing, you're going to have your discs on these areas. And then you're going to have all the enemies going to be represented by them as well. Anytime you take an action in the game, whether it's movement, spending action points to shoot a weapon, picking up a piece of loot that's been dropped, you're going to be spending your action points. And you're going to be moving your character on that many spaces per action that you are doing. Now, anytime you move through an enemy, that could potentially activate that enemy because they all have areas of control around them that you have to pay attention to within the card itself.
Yeah, it's almost like a reaction situation.
Yeah. When you're done taking your movement, you're just going to leave your disc in that area. Now, it needs to be noted that you have to take as many actions as possible in order to get to the next possible enemy on this momentum chart. Once you're doing that, everyone's going to go in whatever phase it is, whatever it's pointing to. You're going to go by the highest rapidity or the person with the most action points, with enemies always breaking ties and winning. And everyone's going to take actions for that particular phase. And then that dial is going to move all the way to whatever the next phase is or the next creature activation is.
Yeah, the way this works is kind of interesting because, like Jeremy said, you do have to use as many action points to get up to the next enemy on the track. But there's some strategy involved in how you manipulate those things, and you can break up your points, and plan on like, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to spend your points? And this again brings back memories of old video games that I played and PC games where you're spending action points like an XCOM or things like that. You have so many points to spend, and you're really working it out. Like I can move 2 points here, and then I have enough to fire my weapon once.
And plus, it presents a little bit different dynamic than what people are used to in playing your Descents and your zombie sides, where it goes around the table, enemy turn, around the table, enemy turn. This, you can kind of set up turns to happen in a very particular way, which gives it more of a dynamic appeal to it.
So that's Sine Tempore. I wish I could tell you more about the campaign, because I think that's going to be the really interesting portion, digging into that, finding what all the different missions are, finding what mobs will come out, and how to upgrade the equipment. We literally have only seen the base level equipment here.
Yeah, we had a chance to play, just like we said, the initial scenario here, and just get a little sampling of it. We wanted to we saw it on Kickstarter. Yeah. We wanted to share it with you guys if you hadn't seen it already, so we wanted to get it to the table just for that purpose.
I love cool miniatures anyway. So this is Sine Tempore. If you guys have any questions about the game, please ask them in the comments. We will answer them to the best of our ability. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. If you guys are going to be at Origins, come by and say hello. We'll be there for 4 or 5 days straight.
Yeah, maybe get a game in. Who knows?
Yeah, and we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Season 1 of Man vs. Meeple is sponsored by our friends at TMG Games. And at Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.